Aaron Rodgers. As we know, Pittsburgh has made an offer to the four-time MVP and recently had a positive meeting at the team facilities. Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin is at the NFL annual meetings in Palm Beach and was asked this morning about Rodgers' visit and how close the two are, maybe a little too close. Here it is. It's new on SportsCenter.
He's a free agent. As you guys know, he came to visit last Friday. We had a really productive day. He's been in this thing a long time. I've been in this thing a long time. But it's no substitute for, intimacy and spending time together and getting to know one another in a non-competitive environment. And so that was really good. But I don't have any new updates in terms of where the process is. We'll see where it leads us. I'm really comfortable with being unsettled this time of year, to be quite honest with you. It's about talent acquisition. Those needs that we fulfill in free agency, we do so there, and when we don't, we fulfill it in the draft. And so I just learned over the years that this time of year, although, day to day it can be somewhat uncomfortable, it is a process.
All right. Intimate was not a word I had on my bingo card. NFL insider Dan Graziano and NFL analyst Tim Hasselbeck join us now here on SportsCenter. Graz, I'll start with you. We obviously just heard from Mike Tomlin. What more are you hearing about the Steelers' approach to Rodgers and how close these two really are?
On the latter, I think you're going to have to wait to hear from them. But okay. On the former, I think the Steelers are comfortable waiting for Aaron Rodgers. They don't have a concrete plan B that they like nearly as much. If Rodgers tells them no, then the next guys on the free agency list are guys like Joe Flacco, Carson Wentz, and they already have Mason Rudolph, who was their starter at the end of the season 2 years ago, a guy that played 6 years there that they know and they like. So I think regardless of what happens with Aaron Rodgers, the Steelers will address the position in the draft, probably with one of their earlier picks, if possible. And if they add another veteran in the meantime that isn't Aaron Rodgers, it'll be because they waited and he got to a point where he told them no.
Okay, interesting enough. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, well, and I think that, Dan alluded to it. They probably are going to need to draft a quarterback, Aaron Rodgers or not. And I think what Aaron Rodgers wants to see is how early are you drafting a quarterback? Because if he's going to go and be the starting quarterback for a year, if they draft somebody, just say, in the first round, then the second he isn't playing well or up to the expectations that many people have, there's going to be, people calling for his job. And so I think what Aaron is probably looking at is to say, all right, let me see how the draft shakes out. Let's see what happens. Let's see where you actually take the guy that maybe is your quarterback of the future before I commit to you for the 2025 season. And I would just say no quarterback. I don't care what guys say when guys get drafted. No quarterback wants to go be the guy when a guy was drafted in the first round. None of them do. It doesn't matter if they're a future Hall of Famer or not. And so I think that's what Aaron is waiting for.
Fair enough. Now other players around the league are starting to comment on it, like Max Crosby. Go ahead, Graz.
Yeah, two reasons they after the draft is something to watch for. One, right? I asked Mike Tomlin today, how much of your draft plans have you and Aaron Rodgers discussed? He said it hasn't come up at all. Also, if they wait until the Tuesday after the draft to sign him, then that helps them in terms of compensatory draft picks for next year. So there's a couple reasons this might still stretch out beyond the draft.
Okay. Beyond the draft would be a tough thing to think about, but we will see. In other news there at the league meetings, Graz, I know, but I feel like we should have a decision before then. There is support within the competition committee to ban the tush-push play. What is the latest and where are things standing with that?
Yeah, a lot of conversation with the coaches today about the play, and you're hearing some of the things that I think are being said behind closed doors about, is it a play that carries a higher injury risk? They don't have enough data yet to support that, but you heard the Bills coach, Sean McDermott, and his team's one of the ones that uses it the most, talk about how they might want to be proactive and not wait until there's a whole bunch of injury data, but get out in front on a play that might carry some additional injury risk. So they're talking about it differently than they have at the last couple of years' annual meetings. And that makes me think that maybe there is a possibility that they vote for a rule that outlaws this. The owners, 24 of the 32 team owners, would have to vote in order to enact a rule change, but it does sound like it's got a little steam behind it this time.
All right. There are a lot of people very passionate about this, like Tim, for example, as a former quarterback. Tim, where do you stand on the proposal to ban the tush-push?
Yeah, I think it's kind of silly that they're already addressing it. Look, in terms of the data on injuries, look, typically the injuries and the plays that they've wanted to get out of the game involved like long sprints and big collisions. Think, kickoffs. Like that's one of the reasons kickoffs have been adjusted. It's because of that. When you get into these short yardage situations, you don't have that. You have guys 6 inches apart, leaning into each other, basically. And I would just say this too, like in terms of the idea that it's a foregone conclusion that people are getting the first down. Look, it's just not the case league-wide. There are there's just a few teams that are good at it. It's because they have big, strong quarterbacks. They have big, strong guards. They have a center that can play. So I look at it as a personnel advantage. I look at it as, look, if you're going to invest in quarterbacks that are big, strong guys, if you're going to invest in guards that are big, strong guys, you're going to be better at it than other people. People also have plays off of it. Like the Eagles line up in that formation and have perimeter plays. I think they're out in front of this a little too far.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I can't believe this has gotten the legs that it has when there's really only 2 teams that do it well because of their personnel. Nonetheless, we could go all day. Tim and Dan, thank you very much. Additions this offseason on the defensive line and at running back. They also have the 12th pick in the upcoming draft and over $28 million in cap space to kind of play with. However, they still have yet to get Micah Parsons' deal done. And here is a quote now from Stephen Jones on free agency. Quote, "We are not done yet. We still got some things that are outstanding that we are trying to get done. Missed a few guys along the way, too, in terms of number, just being a lot higher than they thought it would be on a couple of guys," end quote. NFL analyst Tim Hasselbeck is back with us now. And Tim, when you look at what the Cowboys have done in free agency, what else do you think they need to do right now?
Well, they started to get a little bit, younger and probably better at running back through free agency. And I think they need to continue to do the same thing just across the board in terms of the skilled positions. Obviously, they have CeeDee Lamb, but I think, receiver is still an area of probably position of improvement, I would say. Offensive line would fit that same mold. I just think when you look at the division and you're trying to make things around Dak Prescott better so that he can play at a high level to give your team a chance, they can do that. I'll say this too. They also probably need to address the quarterback position because Will Greer is the one, the only guy behind him. And then you have a 32-year-old quarterback coming off of serious injury.
Okay, so the more help, the better, including a backup quarterback, because especially you don't know what's going to happen with Dak Prescott in terms of when he's going to be ready. Speaking of, he has not played since week 9 when he suffered a hamstring injury that ended his season. Stephen Jones said, quote, "Dak's doing great. He's very thrilled with where he is, and I know the trainers are too. I feel like he's doing a hell of a job," end quote. So, Tim, what are your expectations for Dak this season? New head coach, new system, all the things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the benefit in terms of, new head coach, but system being the same, I would expect him to have a great grasp of what they're doing offensively. I think where I would be concerned is, you have a 32-year-old quarterback when the season starts who 3 out of the last 5 seasons has not been able to play for the entire year. And, that's in large part due because of significant injuries. So coming off of a big-time injury, which this certainly was, I think I have some questions about how well he'll be able to play, and will he be able to play well enough so you can keep pace in a division that's got what the Eagles, are doing with Jalen Hurts and what's going on in Washington with Jaden Daniels and how that is certainly an ascending team. So, look, I believe that if they are going to be good, then Dak needs to play like he did, I think it was 21, where he's throwing over 35 touchdowns and fewer than 10 interceptions.
Okay, well, Dak did get paid at the very end of the offseason last year. So the other question now looming over the Cowboys this offseason is Micah Parsons, of course. He's entering the last year of his contract. How important is it that they get this Parsons deal done early and don't wait till the last minute?
Yeah. Well, I would argue this, Shay, that I think that they've already, they're not early already, because of how they've waited. And because of that, the price has gone up. And I think it's reasonable to think that Micah Parsons may end up as the highest paid non-quarterback in the league because they've waited. And I think when you look at what Dak Prescott's contract is and the fact that you may have the highest, highest paid non-quarterback in the league also on your roster, you almost have to wonder, does it make sense to redo the deal? Or does it make sense to acknowledge that you're falling behind other teams in your division and maybe think about a rebuild?
Yeah, time will tell. We'll see what happens.